All levels of government are adapting to the constantly changing information about the coronavirus epidemic. At the federal level, Congress passed a package of measures designed as a safety net for families affected by the virus, and more action is likely as the crisis grows. Joining us now with the latest is U.S. Representative Pete Stauber, Republican Congressman representing Minnesota's 8th District. And thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
The President wants checks sent directly to taxpayers to help them get through this crisis. What do you think of that, and what's the latest right now?
So, Julie, first off, thanks for having me. It's great to be here with you. I think we talked about the first package was the $8.3 billion. That's going to help with the vaccine and other medical supplies, including our local health departments. And then package 2, which we passed last week, that was the Families First Coronavirus Act. And that was to work with our families, make sure that they understood that the testing wasn't going to cost them anything. We looked at Medicare taking care of paying for telehealth, telecommunications for our seniors. And so this is package 3 right now, we call it. That's in the Senate right now, and they're talking about immediate financial relief for middle-class families. And so we're going to look at it as on the House side too, on both parts, both the Senate and the House, and both leadership groups.
Mm-hmm. It seems, at least at this point, there's a bipartisan willingness to really look at this as something that goes beyond party lines. Are you seeing that in your relationships with others in Congress?
I am, Julie. That's exactly right. This isn't time for partisan politics. This is a time for us to unite as Americans, as member of Congress, both in the House and the Senate. And I have to tell you, I'm very proud of how we're operating in Washington right now. We're getting together, getting things done. This is a situation, it's an emergency for our country, a national emergency, worldwide pandemic, and we're working together. And I think that you're seeing it with the speed of this legislation. And together we're going to get through this. And I've said this before, Julie, we're going to become a stronger nation because of this. And I'm very proud of our leadership on both sides of the aisle.
Mm-hmm. This is an emergency. What's your take on COVID-19? In fact, in regards to how concerned you are that the country has the ability to get the pandemic under control?
I'm confident in the people. I'm very confident in the people. I'm confident in the professionals we have. The whole goal of our actions right now, the biggest goal is to reduce or flatten that curve, in the country of Italy where it spiked up, where the medical facilities and the medical professionals were overwhelmed. And so with what we're calling social distancing and good hygiene and, making sure that if we're sick, we stay home, we're trying to flatten that curve across this entire nation so we don't inundate our medical facilities and our medical personnel like what happened in Italy. And I think that by doing, each and every one of us, Julie, has an opportunity to do our part, and we have a responsibility to do our part. Just coming in the studio, it was different than I've been here before. Your staff is doing a really good job.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure you're watching things happening all across the country, but as you look at Minnesota in particular, how well do you think we're doing in terms of the response?
Well, I think that we're in uncharted territory. We're really forging our own path as we go. But we have to remember that not only for the president and his administration, but to Governor Walz and our local community leaders, they're making what they feel are the best decisions at this moment with the information that they're given, and keeping in mind that the health and safety of the American people and members of our community is a priority. So we're looking at the decisions they're making, input from the experts, and I think that's what we all have to understand. There's going to be time later on for after action reports. We're going to look at what we did good and what we could do better, and I'm confident in the American people.
Mm-hmm. In terms of how the responsibilities and the actions are split, do you think it's the right balance between what's being done on the federal level and how states and local governments are doing their part?
I think we're working extremely close. The coronavirus task force led by the vice president, he's in constant communication with every governor in the nation. And it's important that that the federal government works with the state government, who works with our local county Health and Human Services, who then works with our city. We're all in this together, and it's amazing when we put things aside and we know we have to act as a nation, as one. I see it working very well, and I look forward to continuously working until we as a nation get through this.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the impact on businesses, particularly small businesses, is really enormous. You're a small business owner. I'm sure you're hearing from business constituents. Talk about those conversations and how people are reacting and what they'd like from their government.
No. Julie, we're talking small businesses is extremely stressful for them right now. We know that small businesses are the engine of our economy, and right now they're hurting. And this Package 3, shall we call it, it's really geared towards small businesses. We know that that we need to make sure that they have the access to capital, the immediate access to capital to meet their current obligations. And it's important that we in the Small Business Committee and the Small Business Administration understand that. And this is what this Package 3 is going to do. We want that access out to Main Street Minnesota, Main Street America, so our small businesses can compete. We are in this, the small businesses, we are in this through no fault of our own. And what we want to do, I think, as a nation is we want to make these small businesses as whole as we can, as they were before this pandemic came. And I think that we're working, I think, in a relatively speedy fashion to get that access out there to make sure that they can meet their obligations.
Mm-hmm. And with as crazy as things are right now, a little bit of not tax relief, but some opportunities for people to have a little extra time in terms of sending in their taxes this year?
Well, look, we just extended, the administration just extended from April 15th to July 15th. This is all about making sure that the American people are taken care of, and these decisions are critically important. You know, the invoking the Production Act, which allows American manufacturing facilities and others to work with our federal government to make the necessary supplies and equipment we need during this time is critical. And for instance, the medical supplies are being driven around by the men and women driving our trucks across this nation. The hours of service were relaxed to get these supplies to the locations that they're needed. So we're making these decisions. We're providing regulatory relief, which is incredibly important during this time. And I think that when you make those decisions and use some common sense and logic in making them, we're going to get through this together. And I'm from the federal government to the state government to the county government to the city government. I think we're doing a good job. You just saw one of our St. Louis County commissioners talked about, and I think it's a great opportunity to say that 25% of the county's tax burden for our private businesses, he is looking at putting that resolution, which includes homeowners. So we all, at all levels of government, we can provide, we believe we can help provide relief for that middle-class taxpayer.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are looking at their stock portfolios and what's been a real roller coaster on Wall Street. The economy was on a roll when the pandemic hit. Now we've got the market crash, we've got people out of work, we've got businesses closing. Do you think things will rebound relatively quickly, or would you anticipate that it's going to be a long slog to pull ourselves out?
Julie, I'm hoping that it recovers rather quickly. Going into this crisis, this nation, the economy was going as best as it could. And so this is slowing it down, but I have all the confidence in that it's going to come back, and my goal would be a short period of time. I think this nation needs that, and so we'll see as we as it goes moves forward how quickly we can rebound. But I have confidence in the American people and our men and women in the small business communities.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of the stock market, some of your colleagues who were briefed early on the coronavirus, it now appears that they sold off millions in their own stocks leading up to this before the market crashed. What do you think should happen with those people?
Well, I think that there's an ethics complaint already. There's going to be an investigation, And there was members on both sides of the aisle that did it, and I think it's unacceptable. And I think that if it happened, it's unacceptable. You have to go through the investigation, the ethics part of it. But if it happened, and they did, I think that it's extremely unacceptable.
There have also been a few members of Congress who have tested positive for the COVID-19. Fear for your own personal safety? Have things changed in the halls of Congress?
Well, like I say, the virus doesn't take a Republican or Democrat or Independent. It can hit any one of us. But I think early on, not only in our office, but the halls of Congress, we were very aware of the social distancing early on, good hygiene. But remember, in Washington, we're around a lot of people visiting in our office, and we tried to clean our office just like recommendations were from the CDC, cleaning those surfaces that were used a lot. And twice a day we did our office, and right now we're communicating, teleworking from home. We have the capability to do that, and many offices are doing that right now, and I think it's important that we continue to service the people.
But this has really changed the way that you're interacting with constituents right now.
Sure. I mean, actually all the buildings in D.C. are closed down. Towards our last week in session, our office buildings were closed to visitors. We had to actually, if they had an appointment, we had to go get them, escort them through security, then escort them back out. So there was measures being taken in our nation's capital to ensure that we were setting the example for the American people.
With as polarized as politics have become, many people distrust politicians, distrust the media. From what you're hearing out on the streets, do you have any concerns that people are not taking this seriously, or that they're even tuning out the information about it?
No, I think the vast majority, Julie, are taking it seriously. But we have to make sure that every one of us has a responsibility. We talked about earlier about off camera, the spring breakers in Florida. That's unacceptable. They're part of our communities. We all have a part to do, and we all have a responsibility. And together, this nation, we're going to get through it.
Any good news that you're hearing behind the scenes, maybe, that might be related to testing being more available, or potential vaccines coming on board? Yeah,
so we're looking at the companies that are stepping up and asking the government, what can we do? We're ready to manufacture ventilators, for example. We're ready to manufacture respirators. We're ready to put gowns, hospital gowns together. We're working together as a nation. It's incredible how the private sector has stepped up and said, okay, nation, you need our help. We're here for you. It's an incredible thing to see in the nation, and it's. I tell you what, this is when we're tested as a nation. I'm confident we always come through, and we're going to come through this crisis as well.
Do you think in some ways we could perhaps even come out of this a better, stronger nation than when we went into it?
I have no doubt we will. We're learning as we go, Julie. After we get our after actions are going to show what we did good, what we could do better, and our vulnerabilities. We talked about the supply chain. I think that the members of Congress in both the House and the Senate are now looking at legislation to protect the United States citizens in the pharmaceutical manufacturing, which is offshore, and sometimes it's not in countries that are friendly to the United States. And I think that we have to look at the supply chain with the masks, the ventilators, and the pharmaceuticals. That not all of them are necessarily made here. We want to control our own destiny, and that goes right here, follows logic right here in the 8th District with critical minerals. We have adversaries in this nation that hold rare earth and critical minerals that have expressed some interest in not allowing or not selling them to us. Our nation, our national security, our defense forces rely on those critical minerals and those rare earth minerals for our strategic and national defense. And we're going to have those conversations after we get through this coronavirus. And our priority right now is getting the American people through this as healthy and as safe as we possibly can.
All right. The president has been criticized for pointing the finger at China as the culprit in this pandemic. Do you think, maybe related to some of the things you were just discussing, do you think that long term it's going to impact our relationship with that country?
You know, I'm not sure, and right now we know that the virus began in the Wuhan province of the country of China. There's no doubt about that. And I think that the Chinese government in part has blamed it on the American military. That couldn't be further from the truth. But right now, let's focus on moving forward and combating this virus as a nation, flattening that curve so we don't inundate our medical facilities and medical personnel, which are so essential, like other workers across this great nation. We're looking at grocery stores and those workers. They're an essential part of making sure that we can get through this together.
All right. Congressman Pete Stauber, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you,
Really
Julie.
appreciate it.